From this old TV, hello, I'm Tom Graham for Envato Tuts Plus, and in this video, we're coming to you direct to home video. Well, not quite, but I am going to show you how to recreate this VHS and CRT effect. In fact, I'm going to show you how I created this entire intro in After Effects from scratch. But don't worry, if you don't quite have the patience or the time to recreate this from scratch, I'm going to also show you the very quick and very easy way to recreate these effects using assets from Envato Elements. Now, Envato Elements is a super easy to use subscription-based service that gives you access to millions of digital assets that you can download and use in your projects right away. And I'm talking things like video templates, stock footage, music, anything that you need to get your projects done and get your projects done well, you can find on Envato Elements. And you know what? You can cancel your subscription at any time, so there's really nothing stopping you from clicking the link in the description below and checking out Envato Elements today. All right, I'm gonna jump out of this TV and into After Effects, and we'll learn how to create these VHS and CRT effects from scratch. So yes, we're in After Effects, and I'm going to show you how to make this. There's a few steps involved. It's a little bit complex. It's it's not the easiest thing to do in After Effects, but you start with the most basic things in After Effects. You start with shape layers, and then through different uses of effects and techniques, and then obviously some good stock elements as well, you end up with this. So I'll show you how to do that, but look, you might not have the time to sit down and make this from scratch. You might just need a CRT or VHS kind of overlay look right now. And there's a really easy way to do that. You can go to Envato Elements, and all we need to do right now is type in CRT, and look at this, stock video, a bunch of CRT overlays in 1080p and 4K, and you can grab these, you can overlay them on any footage, and you can get a very good and very quick CRT look to your footage. Let's go back to After Effects and I'll show you what I mean. We'll go into our Elements comp here, and I've got a few of those CRT overlays that I mentioned before. I'll just bring in a bit of footage, again, from Envato Elements, just a nice piece of stock footage here. Well, I guess stock animation of these colorful balls. Now let's just grab maybe this CRT one, we'll drop this over the top, change the mode to overlay, and there we go. That's as simple as it needs to be. You've got a CRT overlay now with a little bit of a VHS vibe that you can use on top of any footage, like I said, and you'll get a CRT effect. Let's quickly try another one of these overlays now, just to get a different flavor. Let's try, maybe we'll try 9. And we'll go to overlay, bit of a different look here. So, there's some really good packages on Envato Elements that will be able to get you from 0 to 100 pretty quickly when it comes to creating CRT and VHS looks. But, these are just MP4 overlays that you put on top of your footage, and they don't really give you a huge amount of control when it comes to, dialing in the specific look that you're going for. So how can we get that control? Well, we can make it ourselves and we can do it from scratch. That's including the pixelated CRT screen, the VHS effects, and how to use it with some actual real life footage as well to kind of really sell the effect that it is on a CRT screen. Now, I mentioned before, it starts off at the most basic level with shape layers in After Effects. A lot of good things start with shape layers in After Effects. So this tutorial is not going to be a basic beginner's tutorial. We're probably looking at about a mid-level skill range here, but not to worry, if you are a beginner, just feel free to pause the video here and there and make sure that you are seeing what I'm doing on the screen and clicking along with me. I will talk through the process in depth, but there is definitely going to be some parts that I will just assume you already know about After Effects, and I'll kind of move past those just so we can get to the juicy bits. So the first thing we want to do in this whole process is start to create the actual CRT screen effect. So CRT stands for cathode ray tube, and basically if you look close enough at a CRT screen, you'll see that it's made up of tiny little effectively pixels in the digital version, but in the CRT version, it's made up of these tiny little things called phosphor dots. So what we're going to do first off is right click, hit new composition, and for the sake of this, I'm going to call this pixels. And what we want to do is we want to make this 42 by 30. And you might think, why are we doing 42 by 30? Well, 42 by 30, I found, is kind of like the right shape to get those 3 pixels or those 3 phosphor dots next to each other, and to then not have too much blank space around them. So now that we've got this, it's a very tiny little comp. I'm just going to zoom in, and the first thing we need to do once we've got this comp is go up into our shape layer tool up here and go to our rounded rectangle tool. And first of all, I'm just going to change this right up to red, so full red, 255.00 on our RGB values, and I'm just going to create a little kind of jelly bean sort of shape here, about this size, basically a third of the width of our little canvas here. So I'm just going to change the name of this one to red so I know what's up. And if it looks a little bit different for you, maybe check down here what resolution you're viewing at. If it's down at a quarter, it'll look very different, but make sure you've got it on full just for this section here. You might need to change it later on as we go, as we're about to get pretty effects heavy with these compositions. So now that I've got my red pixel, I'm just going to duplicate Command D, and with my grab tool, I'm just moving it across to the middle here. And I'm going to call this one green. And I'm going to also change it to green. So we want to go 255 on the green channel and 0 on the red there. And then again, we're going to duplicate this one more time. And you guessed it, we're going to blue. Okay, somewhere around the blue there, 0, 0, 255. And then I'll change it down here as well so we know what we're doing. Now, if you can't see a line there, go up to Window and make sure that align is checked. So in the align tab here, once you've got them centered individually, you just align vertically. And so that will just align them to the vertical axis. And then if you select them all, you can distribute horizontally and that will space them out evenly. And once they're all selected there, let's just eyeball it. We want to basically have the same amount of blank space around the edges. So there we go. That's the basis of our pixels that are going to make up our CRT screen. The next step we need to do is we need to grab this pixel layer here and just drag it down to create a new comp. Right click, go composition settings. And then here we can change this to pixel, I'm going to call this pixel grid. And we're going to make this 8K. That sounds crazy, but we are going to make this 8K. And there's a reason for this, and I'll explain that reason a little later on. So go down here and just go UHD 8K23. I'm gonna bring that back to 25 because that's the frame rate that I work in. If you wanna change it to whatever frame rate you're working in, feel free. So we can zoom out now and go fit to 100, and our little tiny pixels are right in the middle of this composition here. What we want to do is we want to go up into our effects and presets panel up here, and we want to search something called CC Reptile. So we're going to grab that and we're going to drag it on top of our pixels comp. Now, up in here in the effects controls, we've got a few different controls here. We're basically just going to expand this so it repeats across the entire screen. So do that until you've covered the entire screen with these little dots. You can go a little bit outside the lines too, it doesn't really matter. So now let's zoom all the way in and you can see we've got basically an array of pixels, RGB pixels. So now that we've got our pixel grid made, the next thing we want to do is we want to create a new composition, and this time we'll be creating it at 4K, new composition, and we'll go 4K. So we're going to do 3840 by 2160, and we'll keep that in the same frame rate that we've been working in. We're going to call this one footage. So with footage selected, this is where we can bring in the footage that we want to play. So if I go into my actual completed effect that you saw at the start of the tutorial, this is the footage that I'm talking about, what's playing on the actual screen. I've got it up here in my assets, so I'll just bring it into my composition here. So this is the footage before we do any of our VHS or CRT effects. You can see it looks pretty crisp, it looks pretty digital, it looks pretty modern. And this is all assets that I got from Envato elements that I created for this tutorial. So we'll leave the footage composition right now and we'll go on to our next step, which is creating yet another composition, but this time we're stepping down to a 1920 by 1080, which is what we're going to be delivering in. So we'll just go 1920 by 1080, again, keeping it at the 25 frame rate that you're working in, and we'll call this CRT effect. So with CRT effect, we want to bring our footage in, and we'll make sure that that's scaled to the frame. So hitting S, and we'll go to 50% because we're going from 4K down to 1920 by 1080. So now that we've got our footage composition inside our CRT effect composition, we're going to pull our pixel grid composition down on top of our footage layer. And you can see it drops that RGB pixel grid over the top of our footage. You can kind of vaguely see the dancing astronaut in the background there, but it's all just, you know, red, green, and blue in your face. And we're getting closer to our CRT effect, but we're nowhere near there yet. So what do we need to do to kind of sell this a bit further? Well, the first step is to turn off the pixel grid. It might seem counterintuitive, but trust me, this next step that we're going to work on will really start to show you how easy it is to start to sell this effect. So with our footage layer selected, let's go up into our effects and presets, and we want to type in shift. So let's bring shift channels onto footage. And while we're at it, we're also going to do something called set matte. I'm going to drag that onto our footage layer as well. So up in our effects controls for our footage layer, we've got this, we've got shift channels. So basically, if I turn the pixel grid on, again, we can see we've got red, we've got green, and we've got blue. So what we want to do is we want to separate out the RGB channels on our footage layer and make them just come through these pixels. So only red will come through the red pixel, only green will come through the green pixel, and only blue will come through the blue pixel. And what that does, once you zoom out far enough, is create actually the entire color array. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to use Shift Channel and Set Matte. So once again, I'll turn my pixel grid off, making sure I've got footage selected. I'm actually going to rename this layer Red Footage. So up here, we're going to go take red from red, take green from full off, take blue from full off. So now we're just getting the red values coming through on our footage layer. On our set matte, we're going to go take matte from layer and we're going to set that to pixel grid. And use for matte, we're going to select the red channel. So you can already see our effect coming together. If I zoom in, red is coming through the red channel. But let's zoom out and let's do this again for the green and blue channels. So on our red footage composition there, I'm going to hit Command D to duplicate that. I'm going to rename this so I don't get too lost through this process. I'm going to call this green. And up in here, I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did for red, but for green, making sure I've got the green footage composition selected. I'm going to take red from full off. I'm going to take green from green. And then down here in set matte, I'm going to take this from, you guessed it, the green channel. So now we've got our red channel coming through and our green channel coming through. The last step here is obviously to do this for blue. So we'll just repeat these steps again. And now you'll see it's all starting to come together. We'll zoom in and we've got some combination of red, green, and blue, and depending on how bright those pixels are coming through, will show us our brightness and contrast. And then when you zoom out as well, you can actually start to see this gradient forming here. So let's go up here. We've got more of a combination, I guess, of all of the colors here. And when we zoom out, that's getting towards white-ish, I guess. If I go down into his foot here, we've still got those combination of colors, but the red is much higher and the green is kind of backed off, and that's giving us more of a magenta look. So that's how pixels work. And the screen that you're probably looking at this right now, if you look close enough, you're going to see those pixels in action. It just so happens that on old CRT monitors, the little phosphor dots are a lot bigger than modern pixels. So that's why our screens that we're looking at right now don't look pixelated at all, but that's why old CRT screens, if you get close enough, look just like a bunch of dots. So this button right here is going to bring our pixel grid back to its full resolution, I guess. And if you hit S on your keyboard and scale that down, this is why we did 8K, because the more we scale this down, the more, I guess, clear our footage is. So if we scale it all the way up, you can see here, we're just seeing these phosphor dots or these pixels or whatever you want to call them in this, digital context. And it gives the same effect. We can see the red coming through the red, the green coming through the green, the blue coming through the blue, etc. But it, is not selling the CRT monitor effect. Doesn't look like looking at a monitor would in real life, a CRT monitor. So let's go back down to 25, and that's going to basically give us the full amount of resolution that we got from our 8K footage there, our 8K pixel grid layer, sorry. And then that's sitting on top of our 4K footage in a 1080p timeline. So if you did want something that was looking a little bit more like this, you don't have to make that initial pixel grid a full 8K composition. You could just do 4K, but to give yourself just that little bit of extra room to move, I like to make it up so you can scale all the way down to 25 and get, I guess, a more accurate picture. Okay, so that's created our CRT effect to a point. And now we want to start getting the VHS look in. So we'll go back into our footage now and we'll start working on that. So we're in our footage layer, and like we said before, it's exactly the same as it was when we brought it in. We've not done anything to it. So the first thing we're going to do is create a bunch of adjustment layers that will sit above our footage that will have different effects on them. And doing them this way means that we can kind of turn these on or off, dial them up or down to taste. We don't want things to look too damaged from a VHS perspective, but if we did want to make it really look like a damaged tape, we could do that. So right-clicking, going New Adjustment Layer, let's bring that on top of our CRT intro here, and we're going to call this one Distortion. We're going to also right-click and go Adjustment Layer and do another one on top. We're going to call this one Brightness. We're going to do another adjustment layer, and we're going to call this one let's call this one Dirty Tape. And then we're going to do another one. We're going to call this one blur. Then we're going to do one more on top and we're going to call that one noise. Going back down to our distortion layer here, we're going to make sure that's selected and we're going to go back up into our effects and presets section and we're going to search something called wave warp. Let's drop that on. Now this you can see here is kind of warping our image, but what we want to do is we want to start to get that to warp down from top to bottom. So I'm going to move the wave type to sawtooth. I think this one looks really cool. It gives that kind of old VHS vibe. And then I'm going to change the wave height to, I think, about 7 and change the wave width to around 900. I'm also going to change the direction to 0, so that means we're going from top to bottom. And I'm going to change the speed to -1, which means we actually go from top to bottom. If we had it 1, it will go from bottom to top. So let's just play this through and we'll see what we're working with. So you can see here the lines are kind of refreshing down the screen. But on the edge, it's cropping in a little bit. So what can we do to just save that? Let's go up into our effects and type in transform. And let's just drop that on as well. And we'll just make that about 104. We'll get rid of it. And just make sure you're not going to clip the edges there. I've probably gone a bit too far. Let's bring it back to 102. Next on the agenda is brightness. And the reason why we're working with brightness here at the moment in the VHS kind of footage section is we want to give a little bit of a flicker to our image. You know, if you watch an old tape, especially if it's starting to degrade a little bit, I remember it flickering on and off. So let's do that, and we're going to use a wiggle expression to do this. So in our effects and presets, we're going up to brightness and contrast, and we'll just drag that onto our brightness layer. And up here, on a Mac, you're going to do Option click, and on a PC, you'll do an Alt click. But I'm on a Mac, so Option click on the brightness stopwatch here. You'll see here it brings up our expressions for that parameter. So in there, I'm going to highlight what it's naturally put in there, and then I'm just going to start typing wiggle, and you'll see there, wiggle comes up with the parentheses. I'm going to go 7,80. So that means 7 times per second, it's going to fluctuate between 0 and 80% on the brightness control there. So if I just click out now and we'll play through, you can see that it's randomly flickering. And I think that's maybe a bit too intense for the look that we're going for. So let me just go back into the expression here, and I'm going to bring it down to maybe 4, and I'll bring it down to, I think, 65. Let's try that. That looks good to my eye. I'm also going to do the same thing for contrast. Bringing up the expressions control here, and I'm going to go wiggle. And for this one, I'm going to do 2. So 2 times a second, and then I'm going to go up, I think 30. We don't want it to drop out too much. So now not only is it flashing a little bit, but the contrast is going in and out as well, as if the tape were, a little bit damaged, which is the look that we're going for. So next up, we've got dirty tape. So, for those of you who are maybe too young to have remembered the golden era of home VHS, when things got a little bit overused, maybe your favorite movie, maybe you've watched, I don't know, I'm probably showing my age here, George of the Jungle way too many times. You start to get dirty heads on the tape, which basically reflects in the image lines that go down the screen, which kind of start to warp things, they start to change the color, it just looks all kind of messy. And if you look at the kind of recreated digital versions of VHS and glitch effects and things like that these days, a lot of that comes from, dirty tapes. So with our dirty tape layer selected, let's just click the little handles here and we'll just drag it down. So basically we're collapsing our layer to just be a little slither of the screen. So we'll leave it at about that for the moment, and you're not going to see anything reflected yet because we haven't done anything to it. So up in the effects, I'm going to search for Lumetri, which is basically the color grading tools in After Effects. I'm going to drop that on our dirty tape layer. You'll see up here we get all of our controls. What we're going to be looking at here is in Creative, and then we're looking at both the vibrance and the saturation. Now again, I'm going to use the wiggle expression, so Option, click on the saturation stopwatch. And for this one, let's go wiggle, and we'll do, let's go a bit crazy. We'll go 16 times per second. We'll go up to 70%. We don't want it to go full black and white. So let's play that back a little bit. And remember, we're just looking at this bar in the middle of the screen here. So I'm going to pause that and we'll just find a nice spot where we can see a good representation of what's happening. So here you can see we've got this little bar here, which the saturation has changed. But also we want to change the vibrance as well. So we're going to Option click on the vibrance stopwatch, and we're going to double click this, search wiggle, and this one I'm going to do 7 but I'm also going to do 100%. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go 150. So now let's find another spot as well. So sometimes the vibrance goes way up, and sometimes the saturation goes way up or way down. So this works really well. And this is giving us, the really dirty head look. So you can change these parameters here in the wiggle expression to give you more or less of this effect. So another thing that we can do to sell this kind of warped tape effect, we can go into our effects controls and search displacement and go turbulent displace and bring that onto our dirty tape layer. Now you can see here, it's just warped everything nicely. So we've got a few different things that we can change here. You've got turbulent, you've got bulge, you've got twist. You can play with this to try and work out what works best for you. I'm going to keep it on turbulent, but I'm going to reduce it down to about 10. And I'm going to reduce the size down to about 70. So we're not going crazy. We don't want to oversell this. So now you can see as we go along, it's just starting to warp things. I'll try and play this through for us. You can see it's flashing on and off. It's starting to warp things a little bit. It's looking good, but what we want to do is we want to replicate that feeling of it pulling down the screen like dirty heads on an old VHS tape. So how we can do that is we can go to our dirty tape layer and I'm going to duplicate that. And on dirty tape layer 2, I'm just going to open up our position and I'm going to drag it down so we can see slightly differently. And I'm going to grab the little handles at the bottom here and just make this one slightly smaller. So now if you look through, we've got a big one and a small one. And you can see the vibrance and the saturation parameters are changing independently on these two layers because the wiggle expression basically just does it randomly. So this isn't going to match, which is great. It just adds that nice bit of randomness to this. With our two dirty tape layers selected, we're just going to hit P on our keyboard to bring up our position controls again. And we're going to hit the stopwatch position at the very start. And we're going to bring our two layers all the way up to the top. I'm going to zoom out here just so we can see where they sit. Drag our layers up here. Now, let's go forward maybe about a second, and with our dirty tape layer 2, let's just bring that all the way down to the bottom. And our dirty tape layer 1, which is the bottom one, I'm just going to bring forward the starting position a bit and then move down here a little, and just bring that down to the bottom as well. And it doesn't really matter how far it goes. So let's play back this and see what we've done with that animation. So there you saw that just move down the screen. Usually I'd add a little bit of easing to the keyframes here, but honestly with this old VHS look, they tended to move down the screen at a pretty standardized rate. So how can we replicate this along? Well, we'll just go to our final keyframe here and we'll just move forward just maybe 1 or 2 frames. And let's bring this one all the way back up to the top. And again, we're just doing this kind of loosely because it doesn't need to be perfect. We kind of want this to be randomized. We'll do that with the bottom one as well. And we'll move forward just a random part in time. Maybe a little bit slower this time. And we'll bring them both down. Just separate them out a little bit. And then once more, we'll bring them right back to the top, straight after that keyframe. And now we'll just copy our keyframes here. And we'll just paste them along our timeline. And again, random is good. So let's play it through and we'll see what's happening. So as you can see, some of those lines still look a little bit manufactured. They look, sharp and crisp and digital. So what we can do here, we're going to blur things out a little bit as we go. So this is the first place that we're going to blur things out. So on our blur layer, with that selected, we're just going to search Gaussian blur and we're going to bring that on top of our blur layer here. And we'll just shift that to about 5, I think. It just softens the edges a little bit. And because it's above here, it'll soften the edges of this adjustment layer as well, which is nice. And then on top of that, we're going to go to our noise layer and search for noise. We'll just drop noise on top of there. And we'll bring that up to about, this is where, it really depends on the flavor that you're going for. I'm going to make it 20, just so that we can really see that effect happening. And I'll try to play this back and we'll see how we go. So it's looking pretty good. We've got some distortion happening. That's the wave warp that's going down the screen from top to bottom. We've got the brightness flickering. We've got our dirty tape lines that are coming down and kind of warping the screen and also warping the colors. We've got our blur to just soften everything out, make it look a little less digital, and then we've got some digital noise happening on top just to give it a bit of texture. So that's all that we really need to do in our footage composition. And because our footage is just at the bottom of all these adjustment layers, you can bring any piece of footage in, and as long as it's below those adjustment layers, the same effects will happen on top. That's the beauty of doing it this way. So we'll bring that footage from earlier on, the earlier example, and drop that in, and you'll see directly on top, we've got all of our VHS effects that we've just worked on for that other little animation that we had. So super simple. We'll get rid of that now. Still working with our intro animation. Now the really good part about the way we're doing this is if I click into the CRT effect now, because our footage layer is linked, all of those VHS effects that we did are coming through. Now this is where it starts to get a little bit taxing on your machine. So if you do need to drop the resolution down to, a half or a quarter to watch it through, obviously you've got to work the way you need to work. I almost need to do that here, but make sure that you're checking back in on the full resolution, because you're not going to get much of an idea of exactly how this is looking if you're looking at it with anything less than the full resolution, just by the nature of having these kind of little tiny pixels overlaid onto our footage. But you can see here, all of that VHS effects that we've built has come through, and now we've got the CRT effect on top of it as well. So as you can see, it's looking pretty good, but we've still got a little ways to go to make it feel like you're actually looking at a CRT screen in real life and not a digital recreation of it. So right clicking, we're going to make another adjustment layer, and let's just call this one effects. So in our effects layer here, the first thing we want to do is give us that kind of bent screen effect. Let's go up into our effects and search lens, and we'll bring in CC lens, and we'll drop that onto our effects layer, and immediately that's given us the opposite of what we want. But let's bring the size up to 100, and then we'll just start playing with the convergence a little bit to give us that kind of TV screen look. We don't want to go too far, but a little bit of a bend in is kind of the old CRT look there. So then under our CC lens, we're going to go in and blur it a little bit more, and that's going to actually make the pixels blur together a little bit in this pixel grid, which is going to make our whites and bits and pieces like that come through a bit easier. So we'll search Gaussian blur again, and we'll drop that onto our effects layer here, and drop that up to 5. And let's just zoom in here so we can see what's happening. If I turn it off and on, it's just blending those pixels in together, and instead of really seeing the RGB values come through, they're kind of all blending in and giving that effect that we're actually looking at the screen and doing what our eyes do in real life, which is kind of blend everything together for us and not focus too much on those individual pixels. So the next thing to do is TVs naturally glow, so let's start to make this glow a little bit. So we want to grab the glow stylize effect here, we'll drop it on. It's not going to work straight out of the box, but let's bring the threshold up to about 90. And we'll keep this glow radius on 10, and then I'm going to duplicate this glow, and the second one I'm going to make the glow radius about 20. And that will just make the glow feel a little bit more realistic. So if I highlight these two and turn them off and on, you'll see we've just done a little bit of a glow there. And the last thing we need to do is just brighten the image up a little bit. So I'm going to search the brightness and contrast again and bring that in, and I'm going to bring the brightness up to 100. There we go, that's looking a lot more like a TV screen. If I highlight all of these together and turn them all off and on, that's really starting to sell our effect now. Let's move to another part as well, just so we're not just looking at one piece of the image. It looks a lot better than it did a couple of moments ago. So I'm pretty happy with this now. Let's play it through. So it's looking pretty good, and I think I'm happy with the amount of degradation that we've put on there and the CRT screen effect. The next thing I want to do is bring it into the real world, and we'll start to comp it in with our actual footage of a TV. So to do that, we need to go over and we'll just create a new composition, and we'll do this at our 1920 by 1080. And let's call this the TV composition. What we want to do is we want to bring in our CRT effect, which is what we're working with now. And then we'll bring in this piece of footage that we have from Envato Elements. So this lives up here. And I'll just turn our CRT effect off for the time being. And you can see this piece of footage as I go through, the TV turns on, we have some color bars, and then it goes to green screen. So that works really well for us. We'll drag that over the top so our CRT effect is underneath. We'll turn that back on. And on our green screen, we'll just go up into our effects and presets, and we'll search key, and we'll find key light. We'll bring that onto our TV image here. And with the screen color, we just click our eyedropper tool and click on the screen. And it's as easy as that. So now we need to resize our CRT effect underneath to make sure it fits within the bounds of our TV. We're going to scale that down, And with our position, just start to move things around and get it in the right world. And remember, we've created a composition that is in 16:9, and these old TVs will certainly not be in 16:9, so you are going to lose a little bit on the sides. There we go. So now the TV turns on around here, and the green screen goes from about there. So let's just drag our CRT effect composition to there so that we've got the full amount of our animation. And then the very last thing that we need to do, we're almost finished. If you select these two pieces here, right click, and we go down to pre-compose, we'll call this final. So once we've created that pre-comp, we'll just make sure that we click final here. We'll hit S on our keyboard to bring up the scale tool. We'll click our stopwatch to create a keyframe at the beginning here, and then we'll just drag down right to where our animation finishes, which is about here. And we'll just zoom in a little bit to about there. What I want to do is I want to highlight these two, and I use motion 2. You can do whatever kind of easing you like to do. Just going to bring it up to about 75, just to make sure there's a little bit of snap in there. And we'll do the same with our position. So making sure we're on the first keyframe here, hit position, select our keyframe, go back into our scale and go to the end keyframe here, go back into our position and create another keyframe. And that means that those two keyframes are locked. What we want to do on this final keyframe though is just drag the TV down a little bit so that we're centered. And again, I'll highlight these two keyframes and just click on motion 2 here. Again, you could right click and do easy ease with keyframe assistant, easy ease, and that will give a little bit of easing as well. And now if we play it through, we're just getting a little bit of a push in on our footage, and the TV is playing our CRT and VHS affected animation. So there we go. We start with shape layers and just keep building the effect to dial in the look that we want. Let me know how you went in the comments. I'd love to see if you clicked through with me and got the same effect, or maybe you went a little bit harder on the tape degradation there. Now, if you're not already a subscribing member of the Envato Tuts Plus YouTube channel, make sure you click the little red button below. We're bringing you content daily, not only in video post-production, editing, color grading, things like that, but also in graphic design, web design. There's so much content on there, and there's great instructors who just want to teach you what they know about creating content. And last but not least, make sure you do click the link in the description below to check out Envato Elements today. It's an invaluable tool for video creators. There is so much content on there. You're never going to get through it in a lifetime. So like I said, click the link below, make sure you get subscribed, and until next time, happy editing.